Well, hi there. This is just sort of about anything video. I'm going to talk about cymbals. Paiste cymbals, maybe some zildjians, just some other stuff. My allergies are killing me, so if I sniffle, I don't do cocaine, okay? But I am getting killed by the tree pollen. Alrighty. So, somebody somebody mentioned something to me. You know, they're like, Terry, you know, could you try any harder to try to weasel a Paiste endorsement? And now, don't get me wrong, I would have loved to have had a Paiste endorsement back when I was in bands, or my current project, if the Terry Keating Greatest Hits project takes off. It would have been great to have gotten a Paiste, or, you know, for me to endorse Paiste. But, you know, God knows I have enough cymbals. You know, I really, you know, in fact, I was approached by a senior Paiste rep who got a hold of me and was impressed with my PST-7 video. We talked at great length. You know, obviously over the years I've, honest to God, really given a lot, or I've shot, thrown at, talked to the lower doings at the Paiste place in Brea, California over the years, and with my ideas of, again, honest to God, when I first mentioned giant beat to somebody out of Brea, I don't think it was Andrew Shreve, I seem to remember it being a lady. She really did say to me, she said, giant beat? Like a big red beat? Like she thought it was funny. And of course I was like, no, like a cymbal line used to make. So of course, subsequently over the years, I'd always call up and say, look, I found some giant beats, I think they're great cymbals, maybe if you brought them back, it'd be a great idea. By the way, maybe you should bring back the 602s, because they're blah, 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 blah. Of course, it all came to pass. Hopefully I had something to do with it. But I just want to throw out some more, ideas I'm going to say to Paiste and Zildjian, or anybody, okay, in the cymbal department. I have here this is a Paiste 502 Plus. Boy, I really love these cymbals because they sort of have that old up until like early mid-60s sort of Cymbal bell. You sort of see like that the day the earth stood still bell. Again, I'm waiting for the hatch to open and Klaatu to walk out and start shooting double ray beams at everybody. But this was a really great line, the 502 Plus. And again, the senior rep that I talked to at Paiste told me that I think they weren't, while visually I think a lot of people thought was sort of cheap looking. Personally, I thought the cymbals sounded terrific. They actually had, they might have had the 302 Plus, which was brass. They had the 402 Plus, I think, in the 402 line, which was the last really of the nickel silver they made. Cymbals, great cymbals. And then here the 502 Plus, and they also at the time of the 802s, which was also 802 Plus, if I'm not mistaken, because these are them. Okay, 802 Plus is here, which isn't, I think the best treatment was on the 502 Plus, which I think was identical to the 402 Plus. Anywho, I think a great sonic B8 cymbal would be very much in the giant beat vein, because again, the original giant beats had bigger, flatter cymbals. Okay, the reissue giant beats don't. They're essentially 2002 bells, but laid like a giant beat. But personally, look how flat that profile is. And look at that nice flat bell. If this was a little thinner and had giant beat lathing, I think it would be a truly phenomenal sounding cymbal. And anyway, so what I'll do now, here's a Paiste 502 Plus, and here's a Paiste PST-5. This is a Rock Crash model, which I think they still make. Anyway, a year or so ago, they thinned out the PST-5 models. They got rid of the thin crash model and maybe the crash ride. And they also made the existing medium crash. They took some of the weight off and they felt they were a little too heavy. And I concurred. Not that they asked me. All right, so my 502 Plus. Terrific, okay, really. Paiste, I'm telling you, even though eventually me and this Paiste rep had this high-level Paiste rep had a disagreement because I was trying to give them my advice on maybe some advice for the company, which I thought was very helpful. I think they thought this rep of the Paiste company, I think thought I was a spook, maybe a Zildjian or Sabian spook or a Bosphorus spook, meaning feeling them out, like trying to, you know, like a Trojan horse, trying to be helpful, but really like trying to give them the screw scrape. My advice, well, you know, I'll just tell you what my advice was. There are other things me and this rep talked about, which will remain between he or she and I, because I told him or her that I would. Plus, you know, I mean, they're a good company, God love them. But where I was kind of going with it was, you know, with all these Chinese companies coming in, and you know, from China and other places where they're starting to sell, they're getting better at making cymbals. They are. You know, the Wuhans of yore that were really crappy and priced cheaply, no one wanted. But they're starting to get better, and the prices are coming down. And again, I thought that might have been Paiste's move for the PST-7. Because the PST-7, I thought, well, hey, maybe it'll cannibalize a little from the 2002. But they're certainly, PST-7s are certainly not 2002s. Although I think the 18-inch crash model, or I should say the 18-inch thin crash model, is terrific, as well as the 20-inch thin crash for a nice big crash. I think overall the 2002s are superior. The price is justified. But anyway, back to these cymbals. So listen, as I always get off topic. 502 Plus. Here's the PST-5 Rock Crash, old spec, okay? They thinned, a Rock Crash you get, as far as I know from the Paiste site, a current Rock Crash made in the last year or so will not have as much metal in it. But here's the older spec. Nice! Okay? PST-5, I'm going to go back and forth between these guys. Both 18 inches, by the way. Sorry, I just realized something. I do have an 18-inch rock crash here. Rewind. This is actually a 19-inch rock crash. They did before they thinned out the PST-5 line a year or so ago. Not just with the remaining models made a little thinner, but also got rid of a lot of models. This was a 19-inch that they offered. God bless America. I forgot about that. So let me just go back and put on an 18-inch that I have here somewheres. Where are my 18-inch? Where are my 18-inch? Ta-da! Okay, here's an 18-inch crash ride, okay? So where I was going with this is there's a certain sound kind of to the original Giant Beats. The reissues have them too, the shimmer. But there's a certain kind of, I've mentioned this before in videos, kind of like a platey sound. Like kind of a strange, almost wet, dry sound. I can't explain. Which I think if Paiste were to take this shape, again, the day the earth stood still, and gave it sort of the Giant Beat lathing, I think it'd be a phenomenal cymbal. But anyway, back to my Paiste babbling. So I got an email or somehow contacted about my PST-7 video. And again, this is just a rambling. I'm just going to ramble because I need to make a video. Because I'm about to make my Bonham drum set video in a nice room at my friend's house, but it's not going to happen for a while, so I'm just putting some product out. They always say on YouTube you should always have a video come out every so often. So here's a video. So anyway, so the Paiste person, I don't think they were honestly, fishing around for me to endorse them. You know what I mean? Although I think it was probably a good move. I do talk about their shite all the time. But I told the person, I was like, well, listen, again, it would have been great. It would be great to be, to endorse you under my Terry Keating music thing or a band I was in. But I do like the Bonzoleum channel to be, non-specific, what's the word I'm looking for? Untarnished, unbiased, okay? Because I love Zildjians too. I like some Sabian. I like stuff. I like good sounding cymbals, right? So they didn't seem at all bothered by that. They were like, I guess they were kind of like, I guess I respect that. So I was talking to this person. I said, well, in case you didn't know, for the past 20-odd years, I've been talking about Giant Beats, blah, 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 602s, blah, 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 blah. I told the person my idea that they might not have been happy about this. Maybe this is what pissed them off. Is I felt back in the day, they sort of cut their nose off to spite their face a little by getting rid of the 602s. Because at the time, there was this vicious competition between Zildjian, Sabian, and Paiste, where Zildjian and Sabian always talked about cast cymbals versus non-cast. which I've always said is a hoax. What they do, all metal is cast, right? Imagine if you're making chocolate chip cookies. You're making cookies in a bowl, right? Well, a bowl of dough. And you take a little chunk of that dough out, you shape it into a cookie, and you roll it flat, and you do its thing. That's how Zildjian and Paiste and a lot of other people, Zildjian and Sabian do it, okay? Individual chunks at a time in the make. That's why there's a lot of variability in the sound per cymbal. Paiste would take that exact same bowl of dough, cast molten metal, just like it's cast molten metal that Zildjian and Sabian are doing, and just roll the whole thing flat and cut discs. You get a consistency, right? They're both cast. Anyway, I had said this, as I've always said in my Cymbal-holic comments too over the years, that I did feel like Paiste sort of cut their nose off to spite their face, in the sense that they were kind of like, you know what, we developed this B15, the signature alloy, and we don't even need, honestly, I think they were sort of like, we don't even need to bother with B20. And I know their production, they couldn't get their hands supposedly on the B20 anymore, but I thought it was a bad move that they did get rid of it. And I've always said that they, instead of getting rid of B20, i.e. the 602s, they should have maybe dropped, they made, if you looked at their catalogs up until that point, you'd see like medium rides, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 24. Heavies, 13, 14, 15, like the models were, if they just maybe, kind of as big as the 602 is now, what they offer, maybe a little more than that, you know what I mean? Like offer, 21, 21s and, but just they didn't need the whole shebang. Anyway, so we then talked a little more, and again, great cymbals, great sound company. I'm not dissing anybody. But again, somebody had mentioned, kind of like, I was a little, not insulted, but it just bothered me. I'm only a human being, that they were like, you make all these videos, talking about Paiste because you're just kind of groveling for a Paiste endorsement, or blah, blah, blah. I'm not, really. Again, it would have been great if I with my own band. I don't think it's going to happen now. But, where the hell was I going with this? But, the notion of my ideas, okay? Let me just put it this way. Paiste isn't interested, let's just put it this way. If a cymbal company, hopefully an American company, we'll say, because we really have to start thinking, I know Paiste is not an American company. But let's say Zildjian and or Sabian or some American cymbal company. Get your act together and really don't diss B8, okay? B8 is a great alloy, okay? If you guys can figure out B8, do so. It's a great alloy. From where I'm sitting, you haven't. I think, with Zildjian and Sabian, they got lucky in a sense where I think they really tried to make B8 sound good, but they kind of couldn't, or at least they didn't maybe put as much R&D into it as they could have. So what they did was, they killed kind of two birds with one stone. They offered B8 cymbals, but they were all beginner cymbals. They didn't have to put that much tech. B8 kind of, especially with hi-hats and rides, sometimes just B8 itself will sound pretty decent. You don't have to do that much to it, I think. But, so they sell a bunch of it, but under like their ZXT or their, the later, well, back in the day when they had the scimitar, which I think then originally were brass, but then became B8, and, now they have like the, what do they have, the ZBT, the ZXT they had, and Sabian with like the B8 and the B8 Pro and the Pro, and now they have, I don't even know what they got. Somebody make me a B8 cymbal that looks just like this. That day the earth stood still, not too heavy, the nice fine giant beat lathing you'd find on Giant Beats, or sound creations of yore, or Formula 602 sound edge hats, or the Joe Morello stuff, or indeed the lathing Zildjian used to use a lot of the times in the 50s, that you might find on the tops of the original A Zildjian and C's, not the ones from the 50s or 70s, but the ones from like 10 years ago, or the Armands, I should say. It would be a great cymbal. So, anyway, again, my idea, Mr. Paiste person, Mr. or Mrs. Paiste person, again, it would be a great idea. Great slogan, Paiste knows B8. Then again, to the other companies, maybe fart around with B8 a little more and see if we can get it to sound good, okay? I just want to, somebody's interested in what the hell I'm talking about. Okay, so what else was I going to say? What's some other stuff I could talk about? Again, drum show coming up in St. Charles. It is next weekend. So right now it is Saturday the 9th of May. Big storms coming in the plains this weekend. Be on the lookout. Whether you think global warming or climate change is real or not, I'm telling you, climate change is real. Be prepared for twisterdom. Anyway, so what else? B8, right? another purpose to this this video. There was really something I was going to say. I mentioned I'm going to play the drums. I'm going to try in the Bonham room department at my friend's house, which I think his front room sounds like what the hell is Mick Jagger's joint? Stargrove's. I think really, I think the drum sound in my friend Frank's joint, because it's a nice wood floor, the room is sort of shaped, it's not perfectly square, it's sort of shaped kind of funky, the ceilings are high, not too high. Okay, that's where I'm going to do it. So that's still coming up. What else? If you haven't bought my CD, for the love of God, my album called Terry Keating Greatest Hits. The fact that I don't have one here, I should be slain for it. But it's black. It says Terry Keating's Greatest Hits. I'd appreciate it if you bought it. People are always like, Terry, how can I repay you for your videos? Some people say. The very kind few. Well, buy my disc. If you can buy my disc on eBay for whatever it is, I'm selling it. I'll sign it and I'll send it out to you. What else? Oh, here's something else interesting. Let's just babble away. Here's a great cymbal. I got this at the drum show last year in St. Charles. You can get good stuff there. Again, if you come to the Chicago Drum Show, St. Charles, Illinois, May 15th, 16th, and 17th, next weekend. Rob Cook always puts it on. God bless his soul. Wonderful guy. This is a 22-inch. I got this at the show last year. A 22-inch 2002. What if I drop this? That's all I need. 2002. Sorry, battery ran out. All right, as I was saying, sorry, this 2002, I think this is one of the first they made for the following reasons. You'll see here, you'll see the stamp that you'd see on all like pre-1980-ish, you know, the embossed stamp here. But you'll notice on this medium, on this 2002 medium, Paiste black ink stamp, end of story. Okay, doesn't say Paiste 2002, that came out a little later. So I think this is probably one of the first they made. It's a nice cymbal. Let's check it out. So here's a 505 Ride, just a 505. 1985 Ride, just says Ride, 22-inch green label, nice. And then this Paiste 22-inch medium, says medium right there, and apparently it's 2,405 grams, because that's what's written on the bottom. I don't remember seeing that there. A nice one. So that's kind of cool, folks. I think that's kind of cool to look at. I forgot I had that one, so I thought I threw that in. Oh wait, let me finish my Paiste story. So anyway, I think that I might have chafed this Paiste reps, who I won't mention, upper level, him or her. When I said to him or her, and this advice again, like I started going off again on before with Zildjian or Sabian, or any company, well, let's say American company, I'll say, because we really got to start, I think, thinking about, we should start buying American across the board, I think, because our standards of living might mean a lot to our standards of living eventually. Anyway, so Sabian and Zildjian, listen up to. So I had said, well, in other countries, do you notice your cymbals that look, shinier? I mean, look at this. This is sort of a nice, like, disco, not literally disco, but, like, nice and polished, and, looks glam, it looks new and shiny, right? I thought, well, in emerging countries, which are often tend to be in tropical climates, I know, roll your eyes all you want, but I'm dead serious. Tropical climes, you'll notice when you go to those countries and stuff, there's a lot more color, right? I mean, there's more color, plants and flowers and lizards and things. Well, I would think that cymbal sales and probably finishes on drums would probably sell better if they were kind of bright and shiny and cool and disco neon looking, right? So I mentioned to this Paiste person and said, hey, do you notice if any of your sales in, let's say, Mexico or Argentina or some of these warmer places, does it sell better? So the Paiste person got really upset, or a little bit upset, and rightly so, I suppose. I mean, they were like, hey, we don't make our cymbals, to look cool, we make them to sound cool, and I respect that. I do. You know what I mean? I'll buy that for $1, Nonetheless, if it sounds really cool because you did that to it, and then it looks disco and new and nice, do you notice, do they sell better? My point being that maybe in some of these emerging countries, you could might not hurt with the influx of these, imported ones from Asia. And I'm not picking on any Asians, but it's still, as far as I understand, in China, I understand there's like slave labor and stuff. It's not the same playing field in their manufacturing. That's why they can sell stuff cheap. So it certainly has nothing to do with race or anything. It really, two things. One, I think we have to start looking out for Americans with Sabian and with Zildjian. That's why maybe Sabian and Zildjian make some good B8 cymbals, pretty please. But, a lot of these companies, Paiste and Zildjian and Sabian, and they've charged a lot for their cymbals over the years. People pay for it, but these companies are coming in and really competitively priced. The cymbals are getting better and better. And if you've noticed, they're pretty much all B20, okay? I think it's a matter of time for them. Maybe they start nudging into B8 and B15. So my point is, maybe if these companies, let's just say, I won't even mention Paiste now, let's say Zildjian and Sabian, or Paiste, if maybe start marketing these babies in the emerging countries, at least in the short term, it might provide some growth for you. If maybe make a push there where maybe the Chinese companies don't really have an in yet, or they don't have the distributorship. Do you know what I mean? Like, it might be real easy for, maybe because of NAFTA or whatever, for China to sell their stuff here, but maybe not in Argentina or parts of Europe or other places, growing countries, right? So, growing standard of living going up in these places that are, I think, warmer, where shinier, cooler looking cymbals might sell better. So that was my angle to the Paiste person, that they didn't seem to buy that. I think, again, like I said earlier in the video, I think they thought I was a spook or a spy for Zildjian or for Sabian or somebody, which isn't the case. I just like good sounding cymbals, always love Paiste. Again, if indeed they were going to offer me an endorsement for my Bonzoleum's channel, they didn't come out and say it, but I declined in advance. I said, I kind of just like having, again, an unbiased channel. So nonetheless, so that's what I want to address, that, you're just bucking for a Paiste endorsement. No, I'm not. Then again, maybe down the road, if my Terry Keating greatest hits, if that takes off, I'd be happily endorse Paiste. But then again, I got to start thinking of it, like I just said, the Sabian Zildjian thing, because of, again, I think we have to start buying American. So again, Sabian and Zildjian, start making some good B8 cymbals. Treat it seriously. B8's a great alloy. Okay? I know it's hard to do because you've been making a lot of money on B8 that doesn't sound so hot because they're just cheaper. And a lot of people coming into it, that's the thing with Sabian and Zildjian. They didn't, I guess, they didn't have to make it that good because they just relegated it to the cheap lines and sold it up the wazoo. Because, Johnny's parents came in and said, show me your $60 pair of hi-hats. Well, here they are, right? So anyway, that's a bunch of my rambling. What else could I say? What else could I talk about? Yeah, again, go to the drum show. My video is coming up with the drums, which I think will sound cool. And again, I'm going to go in and start recording some more Terry Keating tunes, which I think will sound beefcake and butt kicking. So again, thanks for watching my video. Sorry there hasn't been a lot of quantity lately. I've just been really busy with stuff. What else? That's pretty much it, I think. Ooh, I have a couple. I'm going to make some more Bonzoleum'S stories. I have a lot of stories. I have a lot of crazy stuff. Here's a quick snippet of one, just to throw it in the video. I remember years ago, my friends and I, well, I'll put two in here because maybe I need two of them to kind of shore up the quality. But these are smaller gauge stories. My friends and I years ago used to love, I love trains, right? I'm Mr. Train. We used to climb on the Chicago Northwestern, a now defunct railroad. Well, it merged with the Union Pacific. Back in the day, we used to love to climb up on those signal towers. They go over tracks. You know what I mean? They're like, this thing was probably built in 1915. It's still there, honest to God. If you go Google Earth, Illinois, Oak Park, look at the Union Pacific West Main Line. At South Boulevard in Euclid, you will see this tower is still there. There it is. Me and my friend, same guy from the rock throwing incident, another guy, and his friend Ace and Jay, we'll call him, we were like 11, and this kid looked like he was 19. He was like 6'2", 200 pounds. So we're arsing around, we go up there with our cigarettes, and we're probably 11 or 12. And we used to love it would be at night, right? We wouldn't mess with the signals or anything, for the love of Christ, but it was just nice sitting up there watching the trains go by under us. You'd sit there and you'd feel the hot exhaust of these old E and F units or whatever, these old Huskies who blast up at you. Cops never came and said anything. Maybe one time we might have run for our lives. We used to do this. It was terrific. I wouldn't. Do not do it now, though. A, it's unsafe, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Well, it obviously it's unsafe. But two, especially since September 11th, they're going to think you're a terrorist, okay? So Jason, anyway, back to 1980 or 1981, Jason decides to stand up on the signal tower. And what it is, it's made of iron. Again, probably 1915 manufactured Gary Works steel. And there's some big boards on there that you can kind of walk on and access, like, these things, you know, where the workers will go up and work on the signal lights and stuff. Ace and Jay, did I say his full name? Anyway, so he stands up and grabs the girders, okay? If any of my buddies are going to watch this, they'll know it. And he starts shaking, like he thought it was funny. You know, like you have your buddy like in an elevator, and he starts jumping up and down. You know, when you're a kid, if I don't know if one of your crazy friends did that. But so he starts like going like this. And this whole structure, possibly 75 feet long. The structure itself is probably 25 feet high. And the thing itself is raised because it's on an embankment, a raised tracks anyway. And this thing starts going, I mean, literally, honest to God. So it's elevated. So here we are up, trains go this way, right? Or this way. We're up here like, hey, we're about that big. You know, there's a poster thing here and one here. This thing starts going, I swear to God. That's the story from the old days. That was kind of good. What's another one? What's another one I could throw out? I mean, that's not a really big one. But then there was the time I was at Devil's Hill. Devil's Hill was a hill not far from these very same train tracks in River Forest, Illinois, where when they were probably, what they did is they elevated the Northwestern tracks, the Chicago Northwestern tracks back in 1915, right? Probably a bunch of extra dirt because they decided not to elevate them through Maywood and further, so they probably just left a big-ass hill there, right? So we used to go when we were kids and go and ride our bikes down it. People, I think, used to sled and stuff. And there were like 6 or 7 different options, you know, that you could kind of go down like a ski hill. You have the red one and the blue one and the, you know, the dangerous whatever. This was kind of the same way. There was Devil's Hill proper, which I think faced south. Then there was like something else that kind of went west. And then there was a roller coaster, if I'm not mistaken, which was really long. Like somebody had actually sort of tailored this thing. So it was a hill, right? Except this one kind of gradually went down. And kind of like this, and it was sort of tree-lined and a lot of rocks. And my cousin, Annie Day, and I one day went to Devil's Hill. We thought it'd be great. We went there on our bikes. And I'm still very conscious of my physical safety. I don't want to break a leg, or I won't go skiing ever again because I don't find skiing that much fun. If I break my wrist, I don't want to not play the drums for 3 months, right? Anyway, Danny was, you know, my cousins were always kind of like throw caution to the windy. Like I sometimes wondered if they really could assess physical risk as well as maybe some people could, but God love them. So we're up on Devil's Hill, right? We got our bikes. Danny's like, yeah, and he starts going down this, and it's long. I mean, it was probably maybe a block long. No, God, not a freaking block. Maybe a block wide, okay? So maybe, you know, if you went like a city block, not the length, but the other way. So you're kind of going down the whole way, right? I mean, it's an angle, it's a grade, you know, a lot of rocks, and it's great, you know. He went first, and he comes up, he's like, woo! He's like, yo, Terry, you gotta go. I'm like, okay, and I'm just like, all right. So I got on the bike determined to kind of impress my cousin. I'm like, you know, I'm gonna be tough, you know. It's like, all right, Terry, let's go. I start going, right? I start going down on my bike, and I'm pedaling though, like full blast, like, you know, where you're up, and you're kind of going like that. And I hear my cousin Annie Day saying, no, he's like, I wouldn't pedal, dude. It's, I remember saying I wouldn't pedal, meaning that, you know, it's kind of steep. Maybe just kind of go, maybe just ride the brake, right? I'm pedaling. I get about halfway down. I'm going, you know, I'm hitting big rocks, you know, but it's kind of, people ride on this thing, right? So it's sort of, they're not just sitting there. They're sort of covered with dirt, as you would almost like molehills on a ski hill. So I'm going over these, and after dawns on me, I should probably not be pedaling down this thing. But it's too late, because at the very end there's like a ramp made of dirt and rocks and stuff that goes up pretty sharp that I saw at the last minute. So it goes up sharp, but remember, this whole thing is raised up probably at this point maybe 5 or 6 feet. But at the other end of this ramp, it's sort of the end, right? And it goes down to ground level. So when you're up in the air, in other words, if that was ground level, I probably would have gone up in the air maybe 4 feet, 3 maybe. But since the hill ended and then earth was lower, I was like in the air. So I'm in fact, felt like I was pedaling when I came off this thing, okay? So like the hill kind of comes down like this, and at the very end you have like this, right? Except the ground isn't here, ground is here. So I'm like, whoop, right? And I'm like, I wouldn't, you know, I don't know, maybe at like a 45-degree angle to a plane like this. And I'm petrified because on the ground then there is fresh white gravel, you know, like straight up gravel, like parking lot gravel. And I'm like, maybe I can pull this off. Maybe I can pull this off. And I'm trying to like lean forward. You know, and I was never a bike jumper. My brother used to do it. He was crazy. I don't know how the hell he did it. But anyway, so I land on the back tire, right? And my feet are still on the pedals. And I didn't want to brake right away because I think I thought I'd really get hurt. But I pedaled a little, I think, just to try to like steer the bike down. Like I really thought I could pull it off. But I kept going back, and I kept going back, and I kept going back. So finally I kicked the bike away, just to get away from me so I didn't wipe out and get mangled with the bike. And I landed right on my butt cheeks, my legs straight out like this. So butt cheeks, legs, just went like on the gravel. Now I was wearing shorts, and it hurt. So after I probably slide probably 2 or 3 feet in this gravel, I hear my cousin Danny laughing hysterically at the top of the hill. I mean, like, it went on for about a minute. Like laughing as if, like, a clown exploded. I mean, he was just, you know, it was... So that's the Devil Hill story. Or at least one of the Devil Hill stories. Anyway, so I hope this sort of video about nothing was somewhat... Hope you enjoyed it on this Saturday afternoon. I will get my drum kit, my Bonham configuration set up at my friend Ankfrey's house, and I'll crank it out, baby. I'll put the camera... The micro, you know, at least the camera, the microphone on the camera in certain spots where I think you get the optimal Bonham-y sound. Okay, thanks for watching. Have a good weekend. Again, watch for storms. It's Saturday. I think there's a high risk in the plains. Hear a siren. Watch out. Okay. Talk to you soon. Be good. No flipping. Okay. Thank you. Or flip now because the video's over. Thank you. And buy my disc, my album, Terry Keating Greatest Hits.